This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
Welcome into another edition of the Bar Conversations, and this one is 101 in a lot of different ways. It's episode 101. We're also in the Spirits 101 with Jake Sulek, and we talk rum for tasting notes. But for episode 101, our conversations with the Blue Dogs out of South Carolina. They got a new album out. And what is so cool with them is, typically in our conversations, I drink a lot of whiskey or maybe some barrel-aged beer. But this time, it is hops and spirits, so we go strictly hops. And they have their own beer in collaboration with Holy City Brewing out of Charleston, South Carolina. It's a cool interview. They've got so much history. It's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy all of it. But let's not waste any more time and get right into it.
It's almost time. Where did I put those? Here they are. It's time for tasting notes.
Welcome back again to another Tasting Notes, and we're in the midst of Spirits 101 with Jake Sulek, who's the beverage director partner with the Professors LLC. Jake, good to be talking to you as always.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Now, first round was gin and vodka and kind of those grain neutral spirits. Then we went to brandy, where I realized that cognac was a brandy. Shame on me. But I'm learning, and that's what Spirits 101 is all about.
Exactly.
And on this one, we're going to go to rum and how interesting rum is, because truthfully, I, again, feel naive that I didn't realize there was kind of white rum and dark rum, and obviously then the countries and how it can differ. So for those, just the basics of rum, what is it?
All right, so a lot like our discussions on vodka and gin and our discussion with brandy, this really starts with the raw material, because all rum is going to be made from sugar. That's not to say that there's sugar in rum or that rum tastes sweet because it's sugar. It's still a spirit, which means there's no added sugar to it. So if it comes across sweet on the palate, that's only like a perception of sweetness. You're not detecting actual sugar. But the raw product is going to be sugar. Now, there's a couple different ways they can do this. It came about historically because sugar is molasses is a byproduct of making sugar. So a lot of rum is made from molasses because it was basically free. It's something that distilleries in the 1600s would have just been dumping into the ocean. But you can also take fresh sugarcane and actually juice it and take that juice and thereby ferment it and distill it. So there are a couple different ways to make rum, and it just depends which country you're in to determine what kind of rum you're going to be drinking. In any case, after that, rum works a lot like brandy. It's going to be fermented, distilled. Some rums are aged, some are not. They're a stylistic choice. Each country has its own laws regarding how rum can be made and how it can be labeled. Not all countries recognize each other's laws regarding rum. So rum is probably the most intimidating shelf to go look at a liquor store because there are so many different options. And you really just have to figure out which styles you like and then stick with those styles. They evolved historically as people colonized different countries in the Caribbean. They brought with them certain traditional methods of distilling spirits. And if those people left or lost a war and someone else came in, then those ideas were supplanted or combined with someone else's tradition. And so you get a lot of weird hybrid ways of making spirits in the Caribbean, which can account for such a wide variety of flavors. Most rums are going to be molasses-based because it's cheap. Sugarcane juice-based spirits are going to be a little bit more expensive. I think the countries that define them, Brazil makes cachaça, which is always going to be made from fresh pressed sugarcane rather than molasses. And then you've got French Martinique. Martinique has a number of really, really old distilleries that always make their rum from freshly pressed sugarcane. That's going to taste very bright, very grassy. You're going to have a lot more esters on it, so you can get a lot of fruit notes. Whereas, for example, a Spanish-style Cuban or Puerto Rican rum is going to be thoroughly distilled. It's going to be super light. Think of these like Cruzan or Havana Club or Bacardi. These are going to be really super mixable, but they're not going to have a ton of fruit flavors on their own. And then you've got a British style, like Jamaican rum, for example, that's fermented for sometimes up to 2 weeks and then distilled in pot stills, or a combination of pot and column stills that are going to be estery to the extreme. These are going to taste like days or weeks old bananas, mango, pineapple. Very, very, very fruity, very characterful, very fruit forward. They're make amazing tiki drinks, but they're going to be, in terms of challenge level, they're going to be for the most experienced drinkers.
I was going to say, I mean, like when someone goes to that shelf, because I feel like that's happening in a lot of spirits categories these days, is there's just so many options. And you typically kind of go with the one you know because you're like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
you know, and you, like you said, you almost panic. So if you're going to kind of look at the shelf, what would maybe be a good starting point, and then kind of like you said, build up to something? And obviously, as everyone knows, you drink it how you like it, and different taste buds will like different things, but maybe where's a good starting point?
I'd start something on the lighter side and pick a country, and then kind of stay within that country and try some other producers. I always recommend, just to kind of break the hold that, you know, a plain white Bacardi rum sort of has on us. I always recommend people start with Martinique. Just get a 80 proof clear unaged Martinique rum. They're sometimes called rum agricoles because they're made in an agricultural way rather than a super industrial column still way of production. Rum Clement is an example. JM is another great example. La Favorite is another Martinique rum. These are all going to be really fruity and grassy and fun, a completely different flavor profile than something like a Bacardi or a Cruzan, but they're going to be the same proof and in a similar price range as well. They won't be clumped in with the 10 different versions of Malibu rum on the shelf. They'll be a little bit higher, but they're still going to be $25 a bottle, and you're going to get a very different experience. And if you like that, if you like something that's different, then you can start branching out into maybe cachaça first, and then branching out into some medium or darker aged rums from there.
And then I was going to say, you know, at the beginning I talked about how I felt naive about not knowing there was white, clear white rum, dark rum. What are the differences there that people really need to pay attention to when they're looking at the shelves and what they say?
That one's tricky. Dark rum is a marketing term. Like what makes a dark rum versus an aged rum or a well-aged rum? Most of the time, if the spirit looks so dark it's almost black, it's just from added caramel coloring. It's really what's driving that. It's not aged or barreled in a special way. Black rum as a category is more marketing than anything. It doesn't mean that there aren't really awesome rums. I think that as far as dark rums or black rums go, Gosling's Black Seal from Bermuda is an amazing rum at $15 a bottle, and they do some really terrific single barrel stuff. But I would stick with, if you're looking for something that's got more barrel influence, rather than just buying a black rum or something that says black rum on the label, stick with an age statement. Because rums do have age statements. Like you can get a really amazing 12-year-old El Dorado from Demerara County for probably $35 a bottle, which compared to American whiskey prices, $35 for a 12-year-old product is amazing.
Just a little bit, and you know how we talked with kind of brandy and things that you have to watch out for. Is there anything you need to be careful when you're looking for on the shelves of rum? Because clearly it is a crazy experience when you're there.
Yeah.
Like with brandy liqueurs that could trick you. Is there anything on the rum side that you need to be careful?
Yeah, you run into the same problem with rum. If it's not 80 proof, it's not actually a spirit. It's going to be it's going to have a spirit base that's been blended with some sort of sweetener or sugar to turn it into a liqueur. Most spiced rums are actually liqueurs. They do have added sugar to them. Most things that's going to be infused, I should say. There are a few exceptions, but most things that are infused or have 10 different bottles with 10 different flavors, probably liqueurs, probably not actual distillates. So I generally stay away from the sections on the shelf that have 20 versions of one brand. Stay away from there and explore the top 2 or 3 shelves. You're gonna have more interesting products up there.
I love that, and I'm excited to finish this off next week with Mexican spirits because there is a wide variety there, and it's very cool.
There are.
And I love this, Jake. I appreciate it, and until next time.
Great. See you then.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Joining us here on the Bar Conversations for a fun episode, I'm hoping for. We're going away from the beer side, or from the whiskey side, and headed toward the beer side. I got Bobby Houck and Hank Futch from the Blue Dogs.
That's it, man. Well done. Well, that's the name pronunciation test.
I feel like
I was so worried.
I feel like it's several times in our career people have been like, Houck, Futch. The hell did y'all get these names?
I was so worried because I said, normally it goes so well before, and then I hit the record button and it goes so sideways. But today I was good, and Bobby and Hank are the founders of the Blue Dogs, who have been around a while. I don't want to tell anyone how long in case that you just don't want to know, but
No,
you guys have been around as long as I've been alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody there was an article that was written recently that said, what was that beginning line? It was something about I might have to look it up while we're talking, but it was something basically about like the last time, if your child was born the last time the Blue Dogs put out a studio album, they're old enough to vote.
Yeah.
Now your child's old enough to vote or go to war. Fight, join the army. I was
So
like,
what you're saying is it's been a while, and we'll be talking about that here in a little bit. But I also want to talk. Hank had it up. If you're watching and not listening, Hank had it up on the screen. I guess I know what y'all are drinking tonight because it's pretty special to y'all.
It is.
It is.
It's got our. There you go. We'll all give you
It's a Holy City Brewing. It's a Big Dreamer Belgian Wit. I feel like I have too much light, so I'm going to move my light away. Anyway.
And this is what it looks like in a glass. So we're
Oh,
all
sweet.
drinking the same thing, and so you all have a beer. How cool is that? How cool is that?
What's really cool is actually our manager kind of had the idea, and obviously there's branding opportunities these days with liquor. People have sort of figured that out. It's not like it's a new thing, but the fact that we would have never thought of doing it, and you really, but it really depends on the brewery. And let me just say that Holy City Brewing has just been so much fun, so easy to work with. I mean, they responded right away to it. They knew who the band was. They were, they thought it was cool. And it wasn't just like they made a beer and we just put our stamp on it. I mean, they let us come in and taste and talk about what we were thinking about.
Yeah, they were open to any and all options, really, whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool was it working with Holy City?
Well,
how cool was it?
It was always, shoot, anybody say, hey, anybody gives you the opportunity to come by and taste a bunch of beer, I'm your guy, So we had several meetings that were just great where we were just talking beer, we had talked about doing this Belgian Whip, but before that we were trying let me try another one of those IPAs because they've got 30, 40 beers, so after tasting all the IPAs, then it was time to taste
I just want to make sure we haven't left any stones unturned.
Right.
Let's make sure we explore every option that we have. And,
So what you're saying is you all were very involved, and there was lots and lots of taste testing.
Exactly.
Truthfully, it was like 3 or 4 good visits, and we worked with JT Stelmach. Speaking of not being sure how to pronounce, but anyway, JT, who works at Holy City, was really cool. He took us under his wing right away, and we identified our key component of the beer right away. Is that, and it's similar to why we probably started playing in a band. That's because we want girls to like it, and like us. And therefore, if we want to have a beer, the girls better like the beer, because if the girls like the beer, the boys will automatically fall in line. We didn't want it to be like so hoppy and so. I love a brown ale, and Hank was really into the IPAs for a while there.
Mm-hmm.
Or still are. It took me a little while. I kind of had a breakthrough with IPAs this year. Like I didn't like the heavy IPAs, and I got into brown ale, and I Shiner Bock, and I was really liking Sam Adams, regular old Sam Adams, or some of the Sam Adams stuff, but then I got into Highland Gaelic Ale.
Ooh.
And the Highland Gaelic Ale is, in the Shiner Bock, like I always had to that. And then at Christmas, I weighed 225 pounds. May have had something to do with it, but so I backed off of the IPAs a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, was this a style that you all loved and just kind of gravitated toward, like, as you kind of began to mold that idea of what would be an approachable beer for all and things like that? Is that just kind of what happened was with the Belgian Wit, and then they took it a little further, or how much went back and forth even on getting this kind of fine-tuned?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Bobby just saying, wheat, like a wheat beer would be a good summer beer, and it'd be a lighter beer that women like. And my wife at the time loved those Blue Moons with just a little bit of, orange, or tangerine or whatever it's on. And that's I was like, shoot, yeah, I love those things.
Yeah.
They go down easy. They're nice and light and flavorful.
And I was kind of in the middle of, I'll tell you the other beer that I had just started to like around the time that was Pernicious. That's Sierra Nevada. No. Is that Sierra Nevada?
Well, Wicked Weed. Yeah.
Wicked Weed Pernicious Ale I got onto those. So I was really getting into that little hoppy thing. And so I was like, can we do something light and refreshing and sparkly and all those words that we were using, but can we throw a little hop in there somewhere? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. We can do, it was really, like Hank said, it was like, yes, whatever you want to do. Yes, we can do that. Yeah.
Well, as you said, it's a Belgian Whip beer, dry hopped with Citra and Cascade hops, with a nice citrus finish, and it is wonderful. I really enjoy this.
Awesome.
And as I was joking with Hank beforehand, I said, yes, beer, yes, I will gladly take it. And then I went, oh man, I didn't even ask what it was. But I'm like you, Bobby. I've come around to the IPAs doing this. I've gotten to try a lot more. I still not getting the double or triple, IPAs, anything like that. But give me a nice New England hazy IPA or something like that with some hops like this, and I'll enjoy it.
We got dogs involved. We are blue dogs, by the way.
Yep.
So, now, did you guys do any of the brewing? Did they let you in on that process? Let you pour in some hops? Let you do the whole thing?
Literally, we were there for when they started the process, when they started the boiling and all that, or whatever they do originally, and whether you pour in the stuff, and then we came back. What, 2 weeks later?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks in between, sessions, drinking sessions, and
right. And we came back, and they let us. It was cool. They were very patient in instructing us like what what the process was like. We got a bunch of pictures. If you want to, we should probably send you some pictures from our phones, so you maybe include those on the site if you want to, where the podcast is, so that people can see if they're interested that much. But it was cool. We got a lot of pictures of us, being right there and following the whole process. And then when it got to the end, that was great. We actually created, I don't know if Hank has told you already, but we ended up doing a video at Holy City on Mother's Day. And part of the video shows the canning process. And it's kind of like Laverne and Shirley, Hands are coming down. We wanted to put a glove on one. It'd be like, But, that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, our video, well, it's the video for the song Big Dreamer, which had nothing to do with the beer, but that's what we ended up deciding to call the beer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it fits, and it sounds like a great summer beer, and it tastes like a great summer beer. Now, you guys also do music, is what I've been told. There's even a QR code on here that I'm pretty sure takes you to find music for the beer lovers.
Yeah.
So, how did the band get started? Because you guys have been doing this for a couple years.
Well, professionally for 35, and unprofessionally for much longer.
So just a couple years, but so when did you two decide to go maybe the professional route and make this a thing?
Yeah, that was probably right after I graduated. In 80, moved to Richmond. Bobby was living up there in Richmond, Virginia, and we'd been playing a lot, like through the summers, up to that point, and then we just had we had friends that were they had the Hooties that were rocking and rolling along as Edwin McCain and all them, and we were like, shoot, man, we got a good sound,
Yeah. We, but Hank and I, just to back up a little bit, Hank and I met in Cub Scouts. We were in Cub Scouts together for 1 year when we were 8 years old. We grew up in Florence, South Carolina. So our parents knew each other, and we did that Cub Scout year. And then Hank was at one school and I was at another school, and didn't really see him a whole lot until later in high school. He came to the school that I had been at the whole time, and we started kind of getting together a little bit and playing. I mean, I was a drummer, and Hank was playing bass, but I kind of started. His dad played guitar and his brother, and so a lot of the early days was me sitting in the background while Hank's dad and he and his brother entertained at party. And I'd sort of be sitting in the back, just barely playing, trying to keep up. And then I started playing in college guitar a little bit more and singing. And then Hank and I would see each other at home. He's at College of Charleston. I'm at Davidson, and we were kind of the party entertainment back then, before there was as an alternative to the jam box.
Yeah.
And then I followed two guys to Richmond after I graduated, and we started playing as the Blue Dogs. And then Hank knew those guys too by that point. And it was just like, Hank was a little behind me and said, we were like, you're coming up to Richmond, So really we ended up kind of starting as an acoustic trio in Richmond a couple of years. And then Hank and I both moved back to the Carolinas, and he went to work for his dad. I was a school teacher. I taught school, and after 3 years of that, I decided I was going to get out of there and get my master's in education, thinking that was my sort of thing. We didn't think about that you could actually do this for a career,
Mm-hmm.
And Hank was, but meanwhile, we did have, by that point, when in 1992, which was my third year of teaching, I mean, we could go to Charleston, Columbia, Charlotte, Raleigh, Atlanta, Richmond, DC. We could go to all those towns and play to a couple hundred people at least. And in Charlotte and Charleston or Greenville, it'd be 300 or 400 or maybe 500. So we were kind of like, and it's so funny, we were just like part-time in it. But the real, I always say, and Hank, I don't know if you agree. I think this story is right. It might have been embellished a little bit, but we got asked in April of '96 to open up for Hootie. We got a call. Hank got a call probably, and hey, they're playing a free concert in Columbia, and they want us to open up. Can we do that? Yeah, yes. And it was the night before their second album release. So if you know Hootie biography, Hootie history, that was when they were at their absolute, fervor peak. And it was a beautiful day in April, and 25,000 people came. I mean, just people everywhere in this park. And allegedly, we're backstage, and somebody, and of course, you like to think it was Darius or what, but one of them was like, "What are y'all doing?" And Hank was like, "Well, I'm working with my dad selling gypsum and whatever." I'm working in Virginia doing fundraising, and Philip was like, "I'm selling boats in Georgetown." And it was kind of like the reaction from these guys who had just been through this rocket ride. They're looking at us going like, "What is wrong with y'all?"
And then things changed.
So June of '96, I packed up my stuff and drove to Charleston. I was having so much fun. I didn't even have a place to live for 9 months. I was just living out of my car and Dan Radovanic's house and whoever might take me in for the night.
Well, I mean, so you mentioned that the Blue Dog name has been around. Well, what is the Blue Dog's name? How's that come from? What as a band?
It was the two guys that I followed to Richmond. They were my fraternity brothers. We were SAEs at Davidson, and we actually had this party called the Progressive Drinking Party, and it was dry. It was a day party, so it was a date function, and you and your date, and you got two solo cups, red solo cups everywhere, and vodka was the theme. And the first place was like at 11:30. You got screwdrivers, or you got Bloody Marys, and you got two of them, and you had a little ticket on your thing, and they would punch your ticket, and you get your two drinks, and you hang out at that location, music playing. You both finish your drinks, and then it's like, here comes the school bus. Time to get on the bus, and you go go to the next location, and you get off and you get punched and two more cups, and it was vodka and orange juice, screwdrivers. Then the next one was vodka and wink. I remember we had a vodka and wink stop. By the time we got back to the house, you could imagine like 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and the only thing at the house was Blue Dog Punch. And Blue Dog Punch was, PJ Punch, that was just basically Hawaiian punch and grain alcohol. But it had dry ice in it, and when you would ladle it out, it would smoke, and that was it. And there was a lot of people throwing up that night, me included, I can tell you, and it was not pretty. But when we started thinking of band names, one of the original members, Buck Bradbury, was just into dogs. He's like, "Well, we got to, whatever it is, we got to be dogs. We got to be something dogs." And so we were like, "All right, well," and then we thought about the Dogs and Moon Dogs. That was what the Beatles were going to be for a minute. And then we kind of kept going around, and then somebody said Blue Dog Punch, what about Blue Dogs? And it was before the guy from New Orleans started painting the Blue Dog. I mean, he got world famous painting the Blue Dog. So that happened in like 1991 or 2 or 3. So we beat him by a couple of years, but.
So you are the original. You all are the original, and
I like to think it, but at the same time, Blue Dogs is not a very. I mean, it's kind of almost a generic thing now. You think about, but I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think there was anything else Blue Dogs, but there's a few now. We're starting to see a few more pop up. But I don't know. What I can't think of is what we would call ourselves if we weren't the Blue Dogs, but. At one point, we thought of something. What was that, Hank? It was the Fabulous Cheese
Dogs.
It could work. It could work.
if we ever became like a cover band again, that was where we're going to head.
I was gonna say, I mean, the Blue Dog seems to fit the vibe of the music and just kind of who y'all are. I mean, what got y'all into music? Because it clearly sounds like, Hank, you grew up around music your entire life. Bobby, maybe a little bit of the same, even if it was a little bit different. But I mean, what got you all into music?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, growing up certainly with that, but my brother also played. And we were, a year apart. We were both learning to play bluegrass music together, so we just, Dad took us to a couple bluegrass festivals and we were hooked immediately. And that's all we wanted to do for years and years. Just play bluegrass country. And then, of course, when Bobby and I started playing, we started, he learned a lot of his music favorites came from his sister and his older sister and brother that had the Bob Dylan and the whatever
Neil Young.
They have to say, but
Neil Young, all that stuff, because they were, she was the one that was driving, so she got to pick the 8 tracks. So like Pure Prairie League, Bustin' Out, and Neil Young, Harvest, and all, Neil Young, all the Neil Young records, and Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, and so I knew all that stuff, and but, also Leonard Skinner. I mean, we share, if you grow up in the South in that time, in the late 70s, you're all listening to Leonard Skinner. You're listening to Tom Petty. There's starting to be a Cougar Mellencamp. I mean, so it's funny. A lot of the rootsy rock music that we get kind of compared to. I mean, that's kind of what was happening, so what was happening at the time. But, yeah, I don't know, man. It's one of those things. You look back on it and you don't know. My mom played piano, and she used to say that when she would play at a certain age, I would get under the piano and listen to her play, like I'd crawl underneath it. But I never wanted to take piano lessons, so go figure. But I just wanted to play the drums, and I started playing the drums, and I kind of taught myself, and then that kind of led to, playing in a band in high school, and then I started learning the guitar from the guy playing guitar, and it was just, one of those things. And then, but man, the bluegrass stuff. When you see the Big Dreamer video, you'll see Hank holding a picture of his dad when he had his guitar back in the day, and just to be around him as a guy, as a high school kid trying to learn how to play music, and you got Hanks just slapping the bass, and you're just looking at that and you can't help but smile. That's what people do to this day. And but his dad was just the kind of person that would just come into a room like an evangelical preacher. He would just, he'd just grab you by the throat. If you didn't pay attention, he would call you out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, people
all right
here. They want to listen. You want to talk?
Yeah.
Get outside. Take it out. Get out.
Yeah. Hey, I'm talking. I'm talking right now. And just to hear, and then he'd go into a song like, hey, have you been to Jesus with the cleansing power? How you wash with the blood of the Lamb? I mean, it's like stuff that you just never heard, and it was great. It was great. I mean, it just couldn't have been any better. And so it just kind of, Hank's bluegrass and my sort of folky rock stuff, and then kind of Grateful Dead was kind of in the middle of all that. And if you think about, we graduated college in 1987 and 88. So that was right in the middle of the Grateful Dead resurgence. When Jerry Garcia comes out of the coma, and they had the first top 10 hit in 1987. It was the year I graduated from college. I mean, so that was what was happening. I mean, we were right in the middle of it, and so we sort of went to a lot of Dead shows and started playing a lot of Dead songs, and realized that, oh my God, the Dead played bluegrass and Jerry played banjo. And so, now there's obviously there was a whole genre of music, the jam stuff based on that. So we, it's funny, we just flirted with that a little bit, and we flirted with bluegrass a little bit, and we, tried to kind of be a rock band, because we feel like that's kind of what we really are when it comes down to it. But
I was just kind of thinking about South Carolina and where you all grew up, kind of that's coastal South too. Not the South where you might think of Southern rock, but that coastal South.
Right.
How did that kind of influence the sound of y'all, especially during that time, and
Yeah.
and as time went on?
So, I mean, beach music, that's, if you're from South Carolina, you can't,
Beach boogie.
and you just can't, yeah, beach, yeah, boogie woogie. I mean, well, so like my mom, grew up going to, I mean, well, they all, Hank's parents and my parents were about 10 years apart, but my parents were older, but my mom literally grew up in the jitterbug generation, and her parents had a house at Ocean Drive. I mean, Ocean Drive Beach at North Myrtle Beach is like where at least white beach music was born. And my mom grew up in the middle of it. So they were into, my mom's favorite song was, 60-Minute Man. And, you like to think that my mom didn't know what 60-Minute Man was about. I don't think she did. But that whole, if you listen to that song, it's just that whole, that whole rhythm and blues, beach music feel, which was really like, and then you sort of go Sam Cooke, and then before you know it, it's Van Morrison, which, Van Morrison was a huge influence for me, singing wise and all that. And all he wanted to do was play blues and rhythm and blues. And so we ended up, Sadler Vaden and I wrote a song with beach music in mind, and it's on the new record called Carolina Grand Strand. But so it's funny that what you're asking about is kind of represented on this record, because it really, I think you're right. There is a coastal thing that's not just country, and it's not, it's not outlaw country. It's funny. We've never really fit in the outlaw country thing, because I don't know. I guess we don't sing about.
We don't have words. That's right.
I think we're too happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think our sound though just was really, really the sound that we loved to play was ingrained in us. Before we even got to the coast, just being, well, we were in Florence, which is, where Florence is. Florence is the town you go through on the way to Myrtle Beach. That's where Florence,
Yeah,
the town on Myrtle Beach. Like,
I've been through
that's it.
that. I've been through that.
Yeah,
I-95 is crossroads of America. I-95 and
that's
I-20.
right.
You can get to anywhere. You can get to anywhere from Florence. But people ask me all the time, like, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite song? That's an impossible question to answer. But at one point, I heard Midnight Train to Georgia, and I was like, all right, that's as good as any song I could ever think of. That if that was the last song I had to hear before I died, I'd be okay with that, with Midnight Train to Georgia. And I mean, that's just an R&B, like soul song. And it's like, I could have picked, Hank could pick 100 bluegrass songs, and I could have picked a Bob Dylan song. I could pick a Little Feat song. But I feel like that stuff is kind of,
Hank, you Bobby touched on that, bringing that bluegrass, and he's kind of got that rock side of things, and how you even touched on it beforehand, a little Americana type sound nowadays is what I guess it would be called, but back then you guys were doing something a little bit different, I guess. It was kind of a whole unique sound.
Yeah, it was. We were listening to all kind of bluegrass. One of our favorite bluegrass bands that both Bobby and I loved and got to know were the Seldom Seen, and they were like one of the first. I mean, I'm sure there were probably some other bluegrass bands that were playing some rhythm and blues or shooter rock songs, bluegrass style, but they were the ones that were really, really good at it, and they actually did it so well that I don't know, it was like
it was authentic.
Yeah, it's authentic, yeah. And so we always, and they were all also the band that all had jobs. They all had day jobs, but they toured the world, playing music, mostly weekends and mostly festivals and stuff. But Um, they were our idols and still are, really.
Yeah.
um, but anywho, yeah, we just
Well, then there are also other bands. I mean, it wasn't like we invented something or we came. I mean, there were lots of other bands sort of in the same arena probably, and we were, emulating some of them. But I would say, like, when we finally went full time, I mean, at that point, Uncle Tupelo had been around for a couple of years, and they were kind of a seminal band. They kind of did something. They popped out. I mean, another band you gotta put in the mix is REM. I mean, if you're from South Carolina in 1983, 84, 85, 86, 87, REM was a huge, huge band for me, and I know Hank and everybody, all of us. You couldn't. And then as a musician, you went, wow, a band from Athens made it. Holy crap! And that's what Hootie did. They were totally an REM cover band. They'll say that at one point they were almost like an REM cover band. But so we sort of had them to emulate. Then the Connells in Raleigh was another jangle rock kind of band, and they were guys that went to Chapel Hill, and NC State. So we had some other bands that we were kind of emulating, and then you throw in the Bluegrass, but then Uncle Tupelo, and then Uncle Tupelo split into Sunvolt and Wilco. Then 96 Wave was a radio station in Charleston. So just go figure, our hometown radio station is playing Sunvolt and Wilco and Blue Mountain and Cracker, and because the guy that bought the station owned the station and he could do what he damn well pleased. And it happened to be that he loved that stuff. So he mixed in all the hits with this sort of, he was just really loved that what became Americana. And it was, you'd hear Sunvolt and you'd hear those bands. And so we're all of a sudden like going, yes, bands that we like that kind of sound like what we're trying to sound like a little bit, They say, I mean, Sunvolt sounded a little bit like Neil Young and Crazy Horse in the early days, I think. Those guitars, those tremolo guitars, and But anyway, I digress.
Well, I mean, you talk about it too, and obviously as time goes on, things evolve. I mean, how has the band evolved? Because I know some members have come and gone, and different things have happened. So how has the band evolved over the years?
Good question.
We're still
Evolving.
Still evolving.
I like this.
Greg's our original drummer, so it's funny when we did this record, even though Dan, our guitar player, has been with us for about 7 years now, and Charlie, the pedal steel, has been playing pretty solid with us for about 5 years. But I mean, Greg was our original drummer that just stepped on stage in 1991, I think. And it was me making this record. It was me and Hank and Greg in the studio for the first sessions, with Sadler Vaden producing and playing guitar. He had a guitar in his hand at the desk, and he had Paul Ebersole doing engineering. So really what was fun about that is it was me and Hank and Greg, same old band, and Sadler playing guitar, and just Sadler would just fill in and do whatever. And then we brought in Dan and Charlie, but that to me is like, well, that's the nucleus of the band. I mean, if Hank and Greg and I are there, we got kind of a good bit of it right there. We just, the rhythm guitar and the vocals, Hank's bass, and some percussion. So, Buck Bradbury was in the band. Chris Holden was in the band. I mean, then Chris left and Buck was in there, and we were a trio. And then Buck left and Philip Lammons came in, and Philip Lammons, keeps weaving in and out of our lives because he's now moved to Nashville and he's writing for Curb Publishing, and he's doing really well. And so we've been able to kind of Hank and Philip were roommates.
Mm-hmm.
at College of Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been able to circle back with Philip many times, and he, you know, wrote some songs on this album. Like Hank, I mean, I know you did some writing with Philip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
First.
I mean, how cool is it to bring back some of those guys, especially as Bobby said, Hank, you know, to do writing, because Philip co-wrote several songs on the album.
Yes, he has.
Mhm.
He's written several songs on most of just about all the albums. He's he's an amazing songwriter. He's a bit of the Renaissance man, that he's really good at a lot of things, falconry and fly fishing,
Yeah.
boats,
He's a great
you know,
cook,
guitar
great
and player. You know, just he's a good tool to have in your toolbox. You know, if you're whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's one of those songwriters though that does it is very he writes very very not very complicated. It's like words you say every day, but he's really good at phrasing it, and he's good at putting all those, whatever you say, putting it in a song that it sounds almost like a conversation, like conversationally. I think in some ways I think one of the first write ups, critics that we've received about the new record is that the good ones, which we all think is like one of the best ones, and it does sound kind of like a conversation. Sounds, when you hear it, you can hear like a group of people saying there's songs, there's dogs, there's guitars, there's old bottles of wine, and then but to create a song with all that going on, that's one of his strengths. You
Well, yeah, we just got that this morning. We just got that this morning. It was UK Americana, and listen, to be listened to by that whoever that was, and it was, we got 7 out of 10. Hell, 70. It's a passing grade. We didn't fail.
Yeah.
And but he said the good ones he said the album starts off with the worst song of the lot. Song of the lot, and it's good that they got to be up past that because it gets better from there. And and I'm like, shit, the good ones is one of my favorites. Like, if that's the worst one, well, shit, what a great compliment. Thank you. Thank you. That means the rest of them are really good. But yeah, Philip, we're fortunate that we stay in real good touch, and he's, like Hank said, he's just one of those guys. He just got a lot. He's got a lot going on, and he's just and he's a great guy. And you know what I think he's also good at? I was thinking about this when you were talking, Hank, is he's good at listening. I mean, all he's doing is co-writing, and frankly, people are coming to him because I think of who he is, and because of he's just got a great knowledge of things, and he's just, with all these different interests and hobbies and stuff that he does, he just knows a lot, and he really connects with people. He really gets deep into somebody right away. And I think he's just so good at listening. And when he wrote with us for this album, I think he was really thinking about us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he wasn't really just coming and saying, here's my song, record my song. Although the good ones was his song that he wrote with. And I know the girl that he wrote, the guy that he wrote it with, I got to meet. And then he wrote Love is Love is Love. And I knew that girl too. And, so it's cool to know those people, but then when he did the co-writing with me and Hank, he was really listening, and I think he was really trying to come up with something that we could sing, not just a song that he wrote that we would just cover, So it was satisfying. Yeah.
This album is, as we said at the beginning, it's been a little while in between. If someone had a kid, they could vote, they could drive, they could do a lot of things. I don't think they could enjoy the beer yet, technically, if they were born right when that one dropped. But why put out an album 16 years later? I mean, how did this all come about?
It was made to our fans 16 years ago, and we made And we
Yeah,
made it every
yeah,
year. We made it every year since. Just so it's kind of like making good on a promise. But it was all. I think it was
yeah.
also. I mean, we wanted to. We wanted to. We were just busy,
Covered
covered
up.
up with family and work and gigging. We were playing. Most weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
It was,
There was some stuff that came out early on in the bio for this album that said that we took a sabbatical, but we never really took a sabbatical. We took a sabbatical from the business, maybe, but we never have stopped playing. So we've been steady, busy playing, but playing closer to home. But the gigs kept going, and yeah, we just never really had time to slow down and do it. And if you're going to write, you really got to devote time to it. So in that sense, we're yet another group or artist that COVID, the pandemic actually created the time for us finally. I mean, just to be able to tell you what, just to be able to get off the treadmill of playing every other weekend or 3 weekends a month or whatever. I mean, because it's just hard to turn down gigs. It's hard to just say no when we're willing to do it, and we got the musicians that'll go on the road with us. It's hard to say no, but we had no choice. So it was like, God, to me that was the biggest. People are like, "Don't you miss playing?" And I'm like,
no.
"No, I don't. I like."
You mean yes, but no.
I like hanging out. I like hanging out at my house on my sofa. But then eventually it was like, yeah, it was just like starting to dream about songs, like dreaming about songs. I literally during COVID I started dreaming. I woke up a couple of times knowing that I had just heard a song that I had never heard before, and I've lost it. I lost it, But I swear I was even in my dream. I think I was in my dream still being like, wait, I'm singing something that I don't think I've ever heard this song before.
It's the best song in the world.
It's the best song in the world. The secret to my dreams. Oh, wake up! Alarm's going off. Ah.
Well, I mean, is that where the title, the album title came from? Big Dreamers?
No, Big Dreamers came. It was actually a term that a friend of mine said, but so that term came from a friend, but the song and the content of the song really came from just growing up in a loving family. Growing up with a dad that was a true believer, who had a friend who used to call people dirt roaders. There's a line in there. He's an old dirt roader. He had a friend that used to. He would say, "You see that boy over there? He's a real dirt roader." And it was a term. It meant it was a good thing. It was almost like a good old boy. That's a good man. He's grounded. He's well grounded. Yeah, he lives on a dirt road, but he's he knows the English language better than most English teachers, and he's just a good guy. So anyway, that's where the Big Dreamers though was kind of like that. That title that everybody can kind of relate to. We all have our dreams.
I do think it describes us as a band.
Yeah.
I think it was perfect. It was just one of those centered, moments of synergy where it was like, it was, did y'all watch that, Yellowstone?
Mm.
And then there was the prequel to Yellowstone with Tim McGraw in it. Did you watch that too? 18. Toward one of the last episodes of that, he's talking to the daughter and he says, "You're a big dreamer, girl.
Yeah.
You're a big dreamer, honey."
Yeah.
He called her a big dreamer. He said, "Or you got big dreams." And I think I either recorded it or I texted it to you or something, Hank. And then somewhere else in the past year, I've heard something referred.
I hear it a lot on sporting events, like all these athletes, especially around the Olympics. There were a lot of big dreamers. Dreaming to compete in the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, it was.
Well, and
It definitely applied. It definitely applied to
Yeah,
us with this record.
absolutely.
and what can folks expect on Big Dreamers? Because it's by the time this episode comes out, the album will be out. So what can folks expect, and what can they enjoy on the album?
I think there's a little something for everyone on this album.
Well,
Typical
well,
typical Blue Dogs album. It's got a little bluegrass tinge song. It's got some, definitely the got some hardcore country type tunes on it. And then of course, but I think and it's got whatever.
it's just good old country rock. It's good old country rock. I mean, I think it's pretty well covers everything. I mean, it's got what we are, and it's got a little stretch here. This one song, "Young Love," that's kind of like sounds a little bit like a good old redneck, almost like a modern country song. And then we got a bluegrass song that we wrote with Philip that Jerry Douglas, the dobro master, plays on, and it's just like where we're just listening to it, looking at each other, going, "What? That's Jerry Douglas." And then we did the beach music song, which is fun, playing it for my mom, and she's gets up and starts doing the little shag, and then it's just cool. Is that there you are?
All right, I had
Anyway,
I may plug it up.
Well, and how does this album compare to past ones? Because obviously time has passed since your last studio album. So how does this compare to things that people have heard you all play in the past? I mean, Hank kind of mentioned it, and you mentioned it too, Bobby. It's got a little bit of everything that the Blue Dogs are known for, but what is that?
Yeah, what is that? Songs with relatable lyrics, maybe, and country rock vibe. Little too country for rock, little too rock for country. Little too nice to be an outlaw. But Americana nonetheless. I mean, I don't know. I like Sadler, who produced the record and who played in the band when he was younger, and then is with Jason Isbell now, of course. And he felt like he knew exactly what he wanted it to sound like, and he knew that it would be whatever we wanted it to sound like too. I mean, we kind of feel like we shared in that, and then the songwriting kind of drives it. So maybe it's good songwriting. Maybe we've been just lucky to be able to write some decent songs. I don't mean to sound like cocky or like, patting myself on the back or anything, but, we enjoy doing that. We like to feel like we're, we like words, and we like putting words and stuff together. And we like to think we're educated enough about music where we know how to pull from different places. And that's what it feels like to me, is that I'm such a music fan that I like to, I think I've just assimilated music that I want to sound like, maybe. I mean, I think somebody like Ryan Adams does that. Like Ryan, if you listen to Ryan Adams records, like the Gold record, it's almost like every song sounds a little bit like this song sounds like The Who. This song sounds like The Dead. This song sounds like, but it's him. It's very much him. And it's brilliant songwriting and all that. So in some ways, I'd like to think that that's kind of what we do. It may not be totally groundbreaking. It's not like we're the B-52s and we have some new sound and some new look. We're just song. I feel like we're crafting songs that we want to sound like. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. It definitely does. And, I also think too, you're one of the singles out before the album was The Good Ones, and the video for it. I just feel like y'all had a good time with that video. Is that just who y'all are? I mean, I just feel like, I mean, granted, you have your own beer, which is great, by the way. I'm on my second one.
All
But it
right.
sounds like y'all just enjoy to have a good time. Is that all you guys want to do?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
They're shooting that in one of our favorite, definitely my favorite bar in the world, probably hands down, the Windjammer on the Isle of Palms. Shooting it in that bar, with and the bartenders, the owners,
Yeah, we got the owner in the video with us who said, "I'll never be in a video." And he said it all day, all morning that morning. I don't do video. I don't do video. And his wife showed up and his daughter and like 4 of his dogs. And we were like, and I just went to his daughter. I was like, you got to get in it. Then you got to get your dad in it. You got to get your dad in it. And that's them when you see the couple with the dog. Oh yeah, man. It was in the morning. We got in there at 8 in the morning. So we're by like, when you see us all drinking and stuff, it's only like 11:30. 12 o'clock maybe.
it was
1.
five.
Might have been 1.
It was 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, it was 5 o'clock. But yeah, what did you say? What did you say to somebody? Was that on the radio today? Hey, you said when it comes to
They're
fun.
like, oh, we have our fun. No, we have a lot of fun. Yeah.
We're gonna have some fun
now. Yeah, but there's a lot of work involved. He was asking us like, y'all seem like you have fun. Like, oh yeah, we have fun, but there's a lot of work that we all do. To so we can have that fun. It's not fun if you don't, especially if you don't do the work to support what you're doing. Then it can gotta get a little more like work. But
absolutely, absolutely. Well, and I feel like this kind of.
I was just saying, not that we don't mind work.
We're
work
not afraid
all the time. But anyway.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like I read too where this record means. I feel like this record means a lot to y'all too. I mean, I think I read somewhere where it says the dream is still alive. The dream is still alive. How important is that for you all?
I mean, yeah,
hugely.
I mean, shoot, just to have my kids now are 18 and 16. My daughter, she loves to sing, and she's I don't know. I'm not trying to make the correlation between me being a singer, but I just think that for them to know how hard we've worked, through the years, and that we've been gone, so much, they got to know that this is very much a dream of ours, to share our music with the world, with as many people that we can get to listen, and to stay true to that dream and not give up. I think that's probably the bigger lesson for our kids, anyway. But and our fans, I mean, I think like I said, it's our dream, but we owe it to ourselves. I made the comment, we owe it to ourselves, to our fans, and we owe it to our families too. Because they've sacrificed. We haven't always been there. So to be able to continue to, keep writing, keep entertaining others. That's shoot. And if it gets to be more of that, if we're we're playing on stage at the Grand Ole Opry, in the next year, that wouldn't hurt my feelings either. So
yeah. It feels good. It definitely feels good to means a lot because it feels good to finally circle back and get that dream. I mean, get the promises to stay true to our promise that we were going to do another record. And then for me, it was just like, God, just to get it out. I was really starting to get freaked out a little bit that we weren't going to do it and that wasn't going to happen. I was starting to have those kind of thoughts like, God, it just sucked to not do that.
Yeah.
I know we can do it. I know we could do it. And I was really beginning to question whether I could do it. Like I was beginning to think like either, and I think that's what writer's block is that you start questioning. Well, I'm obviously not. I'm not making it a priority, and so it's not coming naturally. Maybe that part of me is just kind of gone, or whatever.
We
And
had
I
to
don't
get
think
out of
that's
our
right at all.
own way to do it. We really did, and that was
Yeah.
that's hard. That's hard to do as a writer. That is. We were both suffering from writer's block. You come up with an idea, and then you're like, oh, I think I got this. Then you write a couple lines like, oh, I don't like that. Scratch that. Then you never come back to it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we were able to keep our head down and get it
Yeah.
get it through. It took a village. It took all of us and some others to make it happen. But
Yeah. Well, and really to be able to do it, it was going to require from the get go. It was going to require somebody to. We didn't have a manager or a booking agent anymore, and we knew that we were going to have to hire somebody to pull it together and to manage this thing. And Josh Terry, who was he was a intern with Hootie and the Blowfish, and then he worked for our manager Jared Wilkins, who's still here in Charleston managing bands. Josh worked with Jared when we did our Letters from Roundo record in the late '90s, and Josh is always like he started his own management company in Nashville, and I would see every once in a while he'd tweet something, and he goes, I'm listening to Blue Dogs today, and I just want everybody to know that that's just I just love that band. It reminds me when I started in this business, and they gave me an opportunity, and I mean, every time I just call him up and I go, please manage us, and he's like, write a new record, give me some new music. I'm not going to I can't help you unless you have a new record. And that was literally I think you told me that 10 years ago. And he said, but if you have some new music, I can work with that. I can do something with that. So that was always sort of echoing in my brain too. Like nobody's going to want to work with us unless we have a new product. And it finally sunk in one day that, damn it, that's the key is just do that. And sure enough, we hired Josh, said, yes, I'll do it. And, let's go for a year. We'll just see. And then we did the crowdfunder, and people chimed in everywhere, chipped in, and we made enough money to be able to, get the Christmas record done and get this record done. And then then you get the PR firm, IVPR, that was responsible for really setting this up. I mean, you just don't have access to this kind of stuff without them, and it really comes down to what those crowdfunders did. It makes it, and Josh. I mean, Josh is the link. And when young bands and young artists ask me like, what do you do to be successful? I was like, find good management. Find good management. And let me tell you what, it ain't hard to find management.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find good management. Or you got to be careful. You got to be, and it may not be that it's bad management. It might just not be the right fit. So that's hard, man. It's hard for a bunch of young guys to do and to know how to do that. But anyway, we're lucky we kind of hit the jackpot, with Josh, and just the timing and the record and Sadler. I mean, that wouldn't have happened without Sadler. I mean, that's even before Josh. I mean, you got to have Sadler in the position that he's in today, saying, yes, I still want to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Better not do it without me.
mm-hmm.
So that was really cool and really fun. I mean, Sadler made it fun. And, I mean, the week that we recorded, my wife was out of town, so like Sadler and Paul stayed over at my house, and it was just fun. It was just fun to wake up and Sadler be up, like going in there, like, Bobby, you ready to get up? Let's go to the studio. I mean, just anyway.
Well, I mean, it's those relationships. It's those relationships, and as I wrap it up, you can find more at bluedogs.com. Follow them on social media. Relationships go a long way. Like, I mean, I think about it. You brought back Philip to write a little bit. Even other members of the band are part of the process, and even your manager, was back with the group at one point. Sadler was with the group at one point. Even though he's now working with Jason Isbell in the 400 unit, and also doing other things too. I mean, he produced Morgan Wade's album too. So I mean, he's doing this too on the side. But relationships matter, and I guess as we wrap it up, what can folks expect from you the rest of the way, and what relationships are going to be formed throughout the rest of the year?
Got some. I mean, the record's not even out yet. We already have generated some pretty cool events. Obviously, like hanging out with you. Yeah, we got we got added to Darius Rucker's doing a big concert in Charleston. We got added to that. We got invited to the Americana Music Festival in Nashville. So we got invited to do a showcase, like a 45-minute showcase up there. I mean, that's stuff we're just like scratching. Like, is this? They're really listening. They're really listening to us.
We've been wanting to do that. I think just to be able to check the box as much as anything. But I mean, I went to the Americana conference early on, and we'd already been playing for so long at that point that it was tough. It was tough to be there and not be playing. So if anything, and Hank knows, I went there and I came back and I was like, I do not ever want to go to that thing again if we're not playing, because it was just frustrating. It was fun, but it was frustrating at the same time. And I've lived with that for a while. That was a while back. I mean, that was 2008 or 9 or something like that, or 10. So a good 10 years, or more. And now we finally, we made the first round of cuts for the showcase, which is great. So yeah, stuff like that. I mean, that just makes it all worth it. And, we hope to just keep on keeping on.
And the dream is alive, right? The dream is still alive.
Hey, Mick Jagger, I just saw a tweet this week of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards backstage in South America, wherever their tour's starting, sitting down, and Keith's playing the guitar, and they're singing the country honk version of Honky Tonk Women, and they're just looking at each other and smiling. And I just thought, I swear, I mean, not to be too silly, but thought about me and Hank. I was like, that's kind of what we're going to be like when we're freaking 75 and 80. We're just going to be out there. Yeah. Let's just pick. We got to play with Doc Watson one time. We got to do a concert. I booked him at the Dock Street Theater. And you know what he did? He sat backstage and played the guitar the entire time. He didn't sit around and chitter chat and talk. He just picked, and you could go pick with him. And that's why I'm like, dadgum, that's not too bad. That's not too bad for if I could do that in retirement, that's what I want to do. And I think I honestly think that's probably what we will do. Hopefully.
Well, fingers crossed. And this album is great. The beer is great. I have got to listen to the album. Like I said, when this episode drops, it will be out. But I got to listen to the album beforehand. It sounds awesome. And the dream is alive. The beer is good. And Hank and Bobby, this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for being a big dreamer believer.
Absolutely.